Before we start the council meeting this morning, this evening, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance, and we're also going to have an invocation. The invocation, or the pledge of allegiance is going to be led by Connie Risch, and I don't see our minister here to do our invocation. Is there anybody that would like to volunteer to do it out there? If not, well, I'll do it myself. So if we all stand together. Connie?
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. Our Father, as we've come here tonight to discuss the business for this community, I ask that you be with each one of us that are up here, especially the council who have to make the decision on each and every issue. Lord, we thank you for these people that are here represented to discuss or to tell us their views on how this city should be run. Lord, we ask that this meeting, that it should be begun in peace, should be conducted in harmony as we meet, and be with us as we go home. For we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
See if I can flip this chair down.
If everybody would silence their phone before we call the meeting to order, put it on something. The regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Connersville, Indiana is now in session. I welcome all of you tonight for coming. We're going to try to move through this agenda. Looks like it's not real long. First item of business will be reading the minutes of the last meeting of October 21st, 2013, our regular meeting.
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes as they were presented to the council people. Any discussion? Any corrections or additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Under new business, we have resolution 2013-57, the final tax abatement and public hearing for Connersville Commons. I'll give you a little history. Connersville Commons is south of the Walmart driveway. That's the easiest way. There's some bulldozing and water lines and stuff being put in there right now. Remember, it's south, not the north complex. It's the south of the driveway. That group of people came to us 6-8 months ago. We have worked with them. They are building 2 buildings. They'll tell you all this on that property. And they have asked for a tax abatement. We assigned that tax abatement to the Tax Abatement Committee, and they, last Friday, reviewed that, and they'll have a report for you. So the presenter will be you two. You'll come and state your name.
Hello, I'm Katie Kolb, and I'm a Senior Managing Director with Cassidy Turley. I lead our Incentive Procurement Division.
I'm Bill French with Cassie Turley, Senior Managing Director, and I do leasing work on the project.
With that, I would like to open a public hearing as soon as she gets her information passed out.
Thank you. Thank you.
No,
Pretty much so.
she'd like to do roll call now.
Yeah. I think you have to do that.
Councilwoman Risch?
Here.
Councilman Weber?
Here.
Councilman Shomel?
Present.
Councilman Nobby?
Here.
Councilwoman Montgomery?
Present.
Councilman Creech?
Present.
Councilwoman Stevens?
Let the record show there are 6 council people present. We have a quorum, we can do business. With that, I would like to open a public hearing. The public hearing is now open, and we will let the presenters speak if you want to, or did you just want us to read the book?
I would love to speak if you don't mind. That
Go
would be
right ahead.
great. Okay. So again, I'm here as I was 2 weeks ago on behalf of Connorsville Commons and really appreciate the good questions and conversation last time. And I'm sure I can look forward to that again today. This is a little bit different material than what I handed out last time. So there are a couple things that might be a little redundant from the last time I was here, but I know we had some folks who were out, and I know also there may be different people in the audience and watching at home. So just real briefly, I've been hired, and Bill French, my colleague, he's a commercial retail broker. So he handles the real estate side, and he'll be coming up to speak a little bit about that. But I used to be an economic development director in Lebanon, Indiana, and so I do this now on behalf of clients. And so I just thought I'd recap a couple things from our conversation last time and emphasize a few other items. And then Bill's going to talk a little bit about the process for trying to attract national retailers to markets that don't necessarily fit neatly inside of the box in terms of what real estate committees for national retailers are kind of looking at when they're evaluating where to open up new facilities. But with that said, first on page 2 of the report here, just a recap of the details, the specs of the project. That it would be a 22,000 square foot inline shopping center with some freestanding retailers and an outlet for a restaurant. The goal, Bill's leading up marketing for this project, should it move to fruition and should they decide to pull the trigger and proceed with it. And so he will speak a little bit about some of the marketing plans, but the intent is to try and position this as a community that, although the population and perhaps per capita income don't necessarily fit neatly within the matrices that national retailers are looking at, that because of the fact that it's underserved from a retail standpoint and that people are having to spend the money to go to other markets and the time to go to other markets to serve their basic retail needs, that this community would be well positioned for new development. Goodwill and Dollar Tree will occupy sites nearby, and the projects are expected to create about 90 new jobs for the community, with wages totaling about $1 million. And the expected capital investment is about $4 million. So that will be additional revenue to the tax base in addition to job creation and local income taxes. And then, of course, the multiplier effect of these jobs is these folks on their breaks go out and fill up their gas tanks and spend money locally. I should mention too, on the next page, just a tax phase-in overview. I've got the schedule here, and I know the council is well aware that you have the option of either supporting full tax abatement, which we hope you'll consider with 10 years, to a lesser term, and this kind of shows you the schedule of how these benefits are phased in over time. I would like to remind the council members and also the audience that although tax abatement or tax phase-in sounds like it's a tax holiday, the taxpayer, should you decide to support a request for maximum real property tax abatement, the developer and the tenants will be paying for full land taxes and full personal property taxes, and the real estate taxes will be phased in. So the way it works is the first year there aren't any taxes paid on the improvements, and then in subsequent years it's sort of phased in over time. There was some discussion last time about, and I do understand it with my background in public sector, about the concern about existing businesses and whether or not some of those businesses have had the opportunity to take advantage and be on a level playing field with this new type of development. And I think the mayor spoke a little bit about it last time, but under Indiana law, existing structures are not able to be abated. It is only the improvements to existing assessed valuation that can be abated. So if you had an existing building and a lot of improvements were going to be made to it, then that improvement would be eligible for abatement. But unfortunately, you can't go into an existing building and kind of give it an abatement. So unless someone had the initiative to come and ask for it initially, it's not something that unfortunately that you can go and solve, which is a challenge, a redevelopment challenge, I think, across our state, but it is what the law is. So I know there's a big debate not only whether or not to support abatement, but if you do support abatement, how full of a term to support. And while I understand from the matrix and the policy that's been developed, the guiding worksheet, that we do qualify via the point system to be considered for the 10-year abatement, I do know that there are other factors that you all are grappling with. And I'm going to introduce Bill in a second here to talk a little bit about how some of the challenges he has to overcome when it comes to real estate committees that are making the site selection decisions for these national retailers. But it is a real challenge, and while I know all of you would be very anxious to be able to make your purchases locally, these national retailers don't necessarily see the upside in terms of density of population and income to really warrant that. And so the tax abatement benefit is something that will be completely passed on to the user. They will see the benefit of this tax relief, and it will enable there to be a level playing field between a new development here and one that costs less but has a denser population in a larger market. And so that's the reason we're here asking for the abatement support. It's because we want to have a level, we don't want to be at a disadvantage from the get-go when there are some other challenges that have to be overcome. So with that, I'm going to pause for a second and introduce Bill, who I think can speak a little bit about the real estate committee, and then I'll wrap up and answer any questions.
I work with a number of national, regional national and regional companies across the state and helping them open new locations and leasing property. One of the things I do is people say, well, you're a leasing agent. Really, my job is to get transactions approved at the real estate committee of these companies. If I can get it approved at the real estate committee, I've got it done. And so what I need to have for my real estate committees in order to get these things done is I need to have a site plan showing the property. I need to be able to show or demonstrate that it has good sign exposure, of which the regulations here in Connersville give us that. I need to show them that it has a pylon sign. We can check that box because we're going to be able to put a nice pylon sign advertising who's there. I need to be able to say we're near a national anchor such as Walmart or a Target. Well, we've got the Walmart. But one of the things that we're a little bit deficient in is the population and the income and the population growth. Those are areas that are a concern to a lot of the people I've been working with. So it's very hard to address those issues one-on-one, other than demographically we have some models that enable us to show how, since the Walmart is located in the north end of town, how the trade area has actually grown, and we're now seeing license plates from as many as 5 counties in the parking lots there. And so how we are able to say that the trade area has now gotten bigger, that people are from Rush or from Union and parts of Wayne and other counties are not now actually shopping here. But how do we get these other people to get excited about it? And if I have one more box that I can, quote, get checked, and that would be a box that says, well, there's a little bit of an incentive, if you will, some assistance on the tax side. That's one more advantage that we have that then I can take back to these retailers and say, we need you to come to Connersville now. We're under construction. We can have you open in the spring or summer of 2014. And this is what the community has been willing to do for you. They've been willing to put some skin in the game and give you some assistance. So that's a little bit about what I'm trying to get accomplished here. Are there any questions for me? Or any from you?
I have a couple more.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. And so just to kind of summarize a little bit what Bill was talking about, it's more than the dollar impact of what the savings are associated with this abatement. It is sort of the emotional or anecdotal element in the sales process that, hey, we've got a commitment and a long-term commitment, not just a couple-year commitment from the community that supports this type of development. Real quickly, on slide 5, one of the misnomers, if I were in charge of the world and could rewrite all the statute, I would, because economic revitalization area is what we're here. You preliminarily set to have a public hearing tonight to potentially establish this as an ERA. And it's puzzling sometimes because people think, especially, in this community, well, hey, this is actually an area that's sort of poised for, of anywhere in town, this is where the development is potentially happening. And again, it's just sort of language we inherit through the statute. If you look at some of the large projects across Indianapolis, the Eli Lilly corporate headquarters, Dow AgroSciences headquarters, SMC Corporation, those are all economic revitalization areas. So it's just something I wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable with. And then I'm not going to read through slide 6, but it does have some direct quotes from national retailers who Bill has already approached to try and secure their interest in this in this development, and it's kind of the rejection letter, some quotes from that. So with that, I will stop talking and be happy to answer any questions. I sincerely appreciate your consideration. I think it's a credit to the council that you're weighing this issue so cautiously. And I do just want to say that we wouldn't be asking for the maximum tax abatement if we didn't feel it was really critically necessary to the success of this project. So I appreciate your consideration, happy to answer questions, and happy to sit down and be quiet if you're ready for the next comments.
If you would just sit for a minute.
Sure.
This is a public hearing, and we have a custom here. We'll turn this over to the public. Is there anybody here tonight that's prepared to speak on this issue? Anybody would like to speak for, against it? 3 times. Is there anybody that would like to speak at the public hearing before I turn this over to the council? And my 3rd time, is there anybody here that would like to speak on this issue before I close the public hearing? I want to give you plenty of time. It is the council that will make the decision how this is gonna go. They want to hear from you. If you've got something to say, they want your views. They represent you in the community. And, no one? None appearing. I'm going to close the public hearing. I will throw this to the council. And, council, I want you first to listen to the tax abatement chairman. Mr. Weber, you met with your committee on Friday.
We did. We
I'd like
met.
you to give you
Okay.
your report.
And of course, we have a numbering system, and we're obligated to go by the numbering system, so we did, and we came with a total score of 20, which allows them to seek the maximum, which is a 10-year abatement. And I totally agree with it. I mean, I'm sorry I wasn't here at the last meeting. I watched some reviews on TV, not reviews, but I watched it again on TV. But I just think it's a great project. It should be a 10-year abatement. I don't think we've ever said no to anybody that's come to us and asked us for an abatement. Matter of fact, in all the years I've been on here, I think whatever the number stated when we had the numbering system is what they received. I mean, have we ever said less? I'm not really sure. We may have, but I just think it's a win-win for everybody. In a perfect world, like you were stating before, and I want to thank you for the booklet you brought us, but I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be nice to tell the retailer, okay, we want you to take, I'm going to hypothetically say, the Kmart building. We want you there if you're coming here. Well, again, in a perfect world, they would say, okay, sure, we'll take it. That isn't going to happen. They're just going to tell you where to put that Kmart building and go to the next community. So I think what's going on there is perfect, and to me, it's about perception, and it's the perception out there is we're growing. Whether we are or not, you know, it doesn't matter right now. The perception is that we are, and read the 3 little comments from the retailers there, and you can see that we definitely need a shot in the arm. And to me, this is a shot in the arm. And if I could give you more than 10 years, I would give you more than 10 years. But that's the way I see it. That's the way the committee saw it. I think so. So that's my view.
You heard from people that want the abatement. You heard from Dr. Weber, who has chaired the committee and met with them last Friday. I think it's now council time to discuss this issue.
Has there ever been a retail business have a tax abatement?
Yes.
Which one?
Clark's Flower Shop and Grocery Store.
For the production side or for the?
The whole
Retail.
site when it was remodeled and turned into a grocery store.
I'm trying to think who else. Wasn't there somebody else?
I think. Dr. Yard.
Dr. Yari, yeah, and that was a pretty big one.
Did we do a 10-year on that, or we did a 10-year
Yeah,
on
it's a pretty
Dr.
good
Yard?
size, not this, it's not big, but big.
Mr. Creech, Councilman
Uh,
Creech.
Dr. Weber, does your committee recommend a 10-year
Yes.
abatement?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I'm still of the mindset that you're picking winners and losers here. I mean, you got buildings that are existing, and they aren't eligible for tax abatements, and yet we're gonna give a new project, an abatement, or it looks like that's gonna happen. So I would not.
Dave, we probably left you out there. They are eligible for abatement if they
On the
remodel it
improvements.
or
Yeah,
do
on the
something
improvements,
different,
which
put
is-
equipment in.
Which is much smaller than
Right.
the actual building cost.
But that is the law. I mean, you have to go by the law.
Yeah,
That
but
is
the law also said, doesn't state that we have to do it.
No, we don't. We could say goodbye to these people too and have empty lots up there, which is a really good thing. So,
Well, it was farmland.
Why are our rents so much higher here? I
Why
can
did you-
understand the population and the economy, but why are our rents higher?
Rent's higher than,
It says potential tenant 2 declined due to higher rent rates. And potential tenant 3 declined due to higher
Page
rent
6.
rates.
Because it's gonna be raining.
hang on just a
Those
second.
were the clients that you thought you had, I think, Bill, and you lost.
yeah, because I think the rents in their older building, they,
Okay. I
Their
just
rents-
couldn't understand
they
why
went down.
Connersville's
Yeah,
rents
they didn't
would
want
be
to
more than
move.
anybody
They went
else's.
down.
No, for new construction, the rents are very, very, very competitive. Those tenants were tenants in existing centers where the rents were reduced by more than 50% to keep them in their existing locations.
I couldn't understand Connersville's rents being higher than every place else. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Did you compute what you thought the tax might be over the 10-year, what the savings would be?
I have not calculated, I have it back in my office, I didn't bring it with me, but generally speaking, it's about 50% of what the tax bill would be over a 10-year period of just the building improvements. So you get the full land and personal, but the building, it'd be about 50% of the taxes over the 10 years.
would I be safe to say that on page 2, project recap, that includes the freestanding retailers and an outlot for a restaurant? Well, I'm assuming, and I'm just assuming this, that you're talking about a national chain perhaps. Perhaps.
The targeted audience. right?
Okay, and so would I again be safe to say that if we don't have this tax abatement, there is no outlot for a restaurant, and therefore probably that restaurant chain wouldn't even look?
This gives us the opportunity to get more chains and more people to look at the marketplace. It just opens up the doors for more conversations with more restaurants or more retailers.
Okay, just because I don't know, you have talked to restaurants already, or you're in the process of talking, or you're thinking about talking, or you want to
I've been talking
talk?
to restaurants and retailers for over 12 months.
Okay.
with the project.
All right,
Yes.
okay.
What's the potential to fill the whole complex in the next 2 to 5 years?
I would think that if we can get the abatement, I think we can get it done in the next 2 years, because I think that'll get us over the hump. If we don't get that, I think it's gonna take a longer period of time. It could be 5 years to really get it filled.
I will remind the council that the Economic Development Group gave $10,000 toward the expansion of the water line down State Road 1 because we wanted to help these people. I went to the Economic Development Group and asked for $10,000. We split the cost. The city's paying to put it in, and the Economic Development Group is paying for the materials. So we have put forth an incentive there. I get to see a lot more of this than you guys do, and I don't know of hardly any development that's not being done without incentives of some sort. It's abatement, they're in the UEA zone, they're hub zone, TIFs. It's a way of life today, and I agree with you, Gabe. It's a pick and choose, but that's the way Indiana sent it down to us. We have to determine what we want in our community. We want to determine if we want to take risks and give tax incentives and move forward, or we want to just sit here and sit still. And I don't think, from what I do know, you're going to get hardly much of anything unless you put incentives forward. And as you know, we put a lot of incentives forward to get Wayzata. We put incentives forth just recently to get the people that are negotiating with us now to start the organic growing. It's a way of life.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
If I may, I'd like to disagree with my colleague. I don't like, I guess I don't like the word pick and choose. I've only been on council 6 years, and to my knowledge, we've never refused anyone on tax abatement that met all the criteria. And I wasn't here last week, and I apologize, but when I read in the minutes, the mayor had asked someone representing these if this could be a deal breaker, the answer was possibly. And I really don't think that we need to take that chance. I kind of agree with I agree with Dr. Weber. I think we need to move forward with this. Thank you.
To my knowledge, we've never turned down a tax abatement since the legislature passed the law, back in 78, late 70s?
Originally, and then they modified it in the 90s.
Mhm. But I think it's a great tool for economic development, and I certainly don't want Connersville to become known as the city that doesn't get tax abatements, so don't bother to go there. So that's the way I think about it.
Could you put an ethanol plant over there? Oh, I'm just joking. It was a joke, Dave.
Okay, if we're gonna start joking, I would, is anybody ready to make a motion here? Connie, I haven't heard you speak yet. Do you wanna speak on this issue?
I'll make a motion.
You wanna
that
go
we pass.
forth?
Yeah.
Go forth.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we give the 10-year tax abatement.
Second.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. We still have time for discussion. You know this is a resolution. That means one vote and you're in.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir.
I have a question though before we do that.
Yes, go right ahead.
I forgot to ask this question. I was reading in the minutes, there was somebody here last time that, I don't know if he was upset or something, that he did not receive a tax abatement on a new building. Did I misread that? I did. It wasn't? Okay,
I think
okay,
it was
maybe I
part
heard.
of the conversation.
I see, okay, never mind, thank
Well,
you.
I think the mayor's right. Every community gives an incentive of some kind, and I think that this is all we have to give to have the construction or the complex worth $4 million. We're pretty lucky.
Are we ready for the question?
Yes.
The roll call vote.
Councilwoman Rish,
Yes.
Councilman Weber,
Yes?
Councilman Shomel.
Yes.
Councilman Nobby.
No.
Councilwoman Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilman Creech.
Yes.
You passed this resolution 2013-57 with a 5-1 vote, and I declare that the resolution passes. Thank you so much. I don't know whether you want to sit
Thank
here and
you.
listen to
Thank
the
you.
rest of this? No. No, that doesn't show good faith.
You make us.
Let me stand up for one time. I asked you last
Have my
week
kids
for
over.
an incentive to find us an economic development director, and the last I heard, Dr. Hodges hasn't heard from you.
I have been asking around, I will have you know.
You need to get more serious.
Like more aggressive, all right. Aye, aye, Mayor. I have been asking around. I sent out an email actually to my network.
Okay, you're not interested yourself.
I don't think you'd want me.
You could do that a couple of days a week, and what
Yeah.
you're doing now, the other 3.
I really appreciate it. That's very flattering. I appreciate your
Just
consideration.
remember, you have his card.
I know, I do. I
I'll
will,
harass her.
yes, well, I will work on recruiting for you. I
Diana,
appreciate
thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you very
for all
much.
your work
Thank
that
you.
went into this. Thank you too.
Have a nice evening.
Resolution 2013-58, police reimbursement. This should be an easy one. $521.15 going into telephone.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I move to accept resolution 2013-58.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Now, we're going to get down into this. This is pending ordinance 3084. This is to amend the capital improvement plan. We've been through this several times. So if you'll get capital improvement plan out, version 1 and version 2.
They don't have version 2.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I have version 2 for them. We have 2 separate versions for this, depending on which way you want to go.
I think Julie has, what happened here? I got a little confused. I was absent in July when this passed on third reading, and I didn't realize it had passed. So Julie straightened me out, she took a stick to me and straightened me out. So I'm gonna just put it on her. Explain version 1 and version 2, Ms. Clerk Treasurer.
Well, our original capital improvement plan called for the city to match what the county gave. That's how it was originally set up in 2004 when we did the original ordinance for it. In 2013, this summer, we decided that since we had enough funds from the county from our edit to make our pool payment and fund EDG at $110,000, that we were going to amend our capital improvement plan to give $110,000 this year, even though the county was only going to give $60,000. So we had to make a change that we were no longer gonna match the county, we were gonna give our own amount. That passed on both readings, passed once, and we did not suspend the rules. Then the next meeting we came back, we voted on it again, and it did pass. So that's where we are right now. Then the ordinance that you had at the last meeting, when I wasn't here, was to amend that ordinance from the $110,000 back to the $60,000. That did not pass. So we're back now. The $110,000 is still in place. We have made up 2 separate ordinances now, so you can either match what the county gives at $60,000, or you can put your own amount in, anywhere from 60 to 110. I believe that's how it's set up now, right, John?
I believe so, yeah, that sounds right. Well, the version that you have before you, before the second one came around, I just left a blank for the amount that you would fill in, but it did require that the city of Connersville would pay an amount equal to the amount paid by Fayette County, Indiana, to the Fayette County Industrial Development Corporation, not to exceed a certain amount. And the one you had before you, before it was not to exceed $60,000, which you voted against. It didn't pass. So I left that amount blank, so you could fill in an amount perhaps that you may want to use. And on the second, other version, I took out the language amended to provide that the city of Connersville would pay an amount equal to the amount paid by Fayette County, Indiana to the EDCG, and just left it simply that the capital improvement plan should be further amended to provide that the city would pay to the county, Fayette County Industrial Development Corporation, Economic Development Group, monies not to exceed a certain amount. Didn't relate back to what the county paid.
I think the first one sounds like the one we voted down last week, very much like the one that was voted down last week.
We voted an amendment last week.
Well,
It
So,
wasn't an amendment?
It was an amendment.
yeah,
so paragraph 3 is
In this
where the
too.
change is, right?
that's correct. The third whereas,
Amendment. Change this to maximum 60.
But
Okay, before we get any further into this, Julie has prepared edit funds 2013. Does everybody understand that? She's showing what would be left at the end of 2014 if we did the 110. We would have $237.49 left. What I was trying to relate to you last week when we were talking is if you look from the June draw, 215,440, the pool payment, 7, 1, and 13, 59,443.75. We had a balance of 1250, of course, when we started out. Balance 10, 1, and 13, 56,000. We're expecting a draw in December of $115,440, and then our pool payment in this January would be $59,973, leaving us a balance of $115,475.39. We're expecting a draw from the county next year of $107, with a pool payment of $112. that's where I was concerned, and she wasn't here. I'm still concerned, because if we don't get the money, we still have to make the pool payment, and we can make the pool payment next year. But the way we're being told at this point, we will have $0 in 14 to give to economic development. Is that true?
Well, it depends on how we choose to fund it for this year.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we fund it in this manner, the 110,
If we funded it in the 110, yeah, we would have no money.
no money.
If we funded at 60, we'd have $50,000 left. And you know, from what I was told from the county, the 107,000, they believe, is the minimum amount we could get. It could be more than that, probably not a lot more than that, but it could be up to maybe 120,000. But
There's a possibility we could get enough to pay the 110 this year, plus make pool payment next year.
we should have enough for a pool payment any way you look at it.
Next year.
But funding EDG next year is,
Not gonna happen.
We would have a balance of $237.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before we get too much discussion with this, I noticed Dr. Hodges is here. Would you like to say anything before we, or are you just here to observe? Would you like to make any type of presentation, Dr. Hodges?
Well, I don't have a formal presentation. I had some things that I could talk about, but I'll just try to stay on
Okay.
target tonight. But I do, I think last time I was here, I talked about the procedures. I wasn't quite sure what was happening with that. That was foreign to what I was accustomed to. Julie was kind enough to meet with me and explain that to me, so I understand what you're doing. Julie and the mayor and I met and we talked about it, and I do think, I didn't have these figures, we just talked conceptually that it's prudent budgeting to make sure that you have enough carryover from this year to next year to make your pool payment. It makes no sense for you to have to reach into your general fund to do that. And so what I was asking, what we talked about was, how much, what are you expecting for next year? What's your pool payment? And then how much money do you have this year that, how much would you have to carry over from this year to next year to be able to make your pool payment? And I think that's what Julie has. And the three scenarios that she has there, it's either 50,000, 20,000, or 237,000. If you give EDG anything. That's really basically
Thank
all I
you.
have to say.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Hodges.
I'd like to bring up something, unless I'm confused, and I appreciate you doing this, Julie, but I guess I just don't know. The balance, October 1st, I see that, and then the December draw, you add that. The pool payment, January 1st, are you considering that 2013?
money, because we have to pay it out in 13 to
Okay.
get it there in time.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
so,
and this 112,000 is on top of that 55,000, that's not included in that amount,
yeah, so you're not including that in the
No.
112?
no.
Okay, okay. So we've only
Talking
made
about when the
one,
payments go out
yeah,
in that calendar year.
yeah. We've only made one pool payment this year,
Yes, we
because
paid it
the
in
January
July.
1st of 2013 was 2012's money.
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay,
And if we get what we're expecting from the county next year, we're actually gonna be 5,000 short on the pool payment, correct?
Well, yes, but we would have, even if we funded EDG at the 110,000, we would have 5,000
Okay, I
left
see,
over
yeah.
to make that pool payment for next year.
Is there any, I'd like to make a motion if there's any more questions.
Well-
Wait, everybody, Dr. Weber, did you want to speak?
No, I'm fine.
Well-
I'm listening.
I guess I have if we go with 110, the writing's on the wall. I mean, she just said that we'd have $5,000 left over. But if we do anything other than that, what happens to the money that sits there? I mean, it literally sits there.
We would pay
Can't-
EDG again next year, the
Yeah.
50,000. We would have 50,000 to
Yeah.
pay next year.
Okay, so it just sits there, we cannot use it for anything else, because we,
Yeah, we can.
correct?
We can, but we'd have to appropriate
We'd
it
have
to
to
use it for
appropriate.
anything else. It would have to come back to this council to be appropriated.
Say that the Economic Development Group had a incentive they needed to pay for, and they came to us and said, could we have more money? And this group wanted to do an additional appropriation, we could take money out of that.
Okay, but it can only go to them. Them, and I thought the pool payment.
That's all.
That's,
Yes.
okay, so along those lines.
It's not like, we're not gonna take this out and subsidize our budget with it.
Correct, correct.
So,
Okay.
so basically, if I'm looking at this right, the max we're gonna give is 110, either this year or this year and next year.
Unless we end up getting more from the county than we expect to.
So Dr. Hodges, how do you feel about that? What's most advantageous for you guys? To split it up or to get it all in one lump sum?
I think the worst thing that you can do is put yourself in some kind of financial jeopardy. I think Julie's indicated you could do what you chose. One of the things I was concerned about, as I heard numbers being thrown around, I wasn't quite sure what that was based upon. I now understand that you could fully fund that. One of the things, I have a couple articles that I could share with you. I think it was asked the last time whether we were serious about hiring an economic development director. I have a letter from Duke Energy. We applied for a grant. We were not successful in obtaining that grant. And as I explained why we didn't receive that grant, it was because we didn't have an economic development director. There was an article, I believe last week in the News Examiner, where Trevor Lane from IEDC was making a presentation down in Franklin County. And if you'll allow me just to read some quotes that were in the paper. Trevor does represent us as well. When he was talking to them about things that they need to do, it says another suggestion Lane gave is hiring a full-time economic development director in order to put 100% effort behind economic development in the county. I would really encourage you to see how you could possibly fund a full-time director, at least a director that can focus on economic development. You really got to commit to it. I don't work with any part-time economic development folks. I'd encourage you to try to find the funding some way, some sort of way, so that we have a main contact. If that's good for Franklin County, I think that applies to us as well. My concern is if we don't know where our money's coming from, or where it's coming from on a consistent basis, how can we go out and recruit somebody of quality to come here? That's my main concern. As I expressed to Julie and the mayor, I would hate for you to fund at a level that would put your general fund in jeopardy next year. I think you can do that based on this, based what you anticipate in tax coming in December. You can fund EDG at 110. If you feel more comfortable scaling back and holding back a little bit more next year, with the understanding that if things come through at least this good, or it comes through better, that you would consider giving additional to EDG. That's, you know, it's about working together and doing what's fair. That's all that I ask you. And you have to be comfortable with that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so, but the way I'm looking at this, it looks like we're expecting actually a $5,000 shortfall for the pool payment next year, correct? And then if we give 60 this year, there's a remainder of 50,000 that we would have available for EDG next year, correct?
Possibly.
Possibly. Or if we were to give 110 this year, the maximum that we would have available with our numbers right now is $237.
Right.
So, which is more advantageous, to get the 60 and then 50 next year, or 110 and then possible 237 next
Well,
year?
if you give us 110 this year, we would know that we have it. If we have to wait till next year, then we could be going through the same conversation again, wondering whether or not it's going to come forward. So, not here to argue, just to say, as has been stated before, there are two uses for edit funds. Historically, you've either funded the pool or funded EDG. It's not money that I think that you necessarily want to build cash balance with. It's trying to use that to, and it's exciting to hear people talk about 90 new jobs coming in, 300 new jobs coming in, 100 new jobs coming in. We're making some progress, and it'd be nice to be able to build upon that as we move forward.
I'm gonna stick with the 60,000 like I did 2 weeks ago, because I think the county and city have agreed when this all began to be a 50-50 deal and to match each other, so I'm gonna stick with the 60.
The money's mostly to recruit. I mean, to have a salary and to recruit somebody.
We've talked about some things last week, some money that we've invested back in. We've not come and asked for additional money. We've been approached asking to spend money to help support some projects. That's the way it's been. I'm just thinking that if I were considering a position and I knew the county wasn't going to be providing any funds, and I knew that the city was considering not providing any funds, why would I want to come here as an economic development director
Well,
if the support's not there?
You can't do this job.
No, I cannot.
No, I mean, you just can't. I mean, I don't know how you do it the way you're doing it now. I mean, you're like the big kahuna over there. I mean, you have a lot on your plate, and I don't know how you do it the way you're doing it. And I admire you for that, but we have to do something that, well, you know, you have to be, you gotta get it off your shoulders a little bit. I just don't know how to do it. I mean, so, I understand Fran too. I just, kind of catch-22.
If you look back, when Bill Collier took the job, he stayed a year or two. When he saw the handwriting on the wall, there wasn't enough. He bailed. He had a
bailed.
good offer. That's been our problem all the time. We don't have consistent funding, and it doesn't look like consistent funding is in the near future. They do have about $553,000 in the bank, right? So you
Well,
gotta,
some of that's restricted funds and some's unrestricted funds. I don't have that number for me, but we do have somebody in the bank.
so you got enough to go forward and hire somebody. What we need to do is get this mess straightened out so we know what the funding is every year. That's our biggest
Yeah, the
problem.
problem there is long-term. I
Long-term.
would think a long-term economic developer wants to know that he's gonna be here more than 3 years.
Right, and then one of the comments too that concerned me a little bit is that if the capital plan always stays that the city will pay what the county pays, and if the county backs off and doesn't pay anything, then where are we as EDG, and where are you as a city in supporting economic development?
Well, of course, we are again bound by state law. They get the first count on the money.
I understand
And
that.
so we sit here with our hands tied. They can give us whatever they want to. And,
Dr. Weber, you did ask if the only thing they were looking into was an economic development director. They're also, as a committee, getting ready to check out some buildings, isn't it?
Right, we're working on a date, I think.
December 12th, I think. isn't it? December 11th.
I was saying it was November the 14th.
November 4th.
We have a committee that's going to visit
I
two
just read that.
spec buildings.
Oh, really?
Right.
Okay.
To see if that's something that makes sense for us. We've had some conversation with someone that has talked to us that we might be able to do both, build a spec building, finance it in a creative way, plus hire an economic development
Really?
director. We've not made that decision. That's been floated saying that's a
David
possibility for us.
Copperfield right there.
I guess.
We have got Duke Energy grants in the past without having a director. We got 20,000.
We have, on the Pramco property, we did get 20,000. If you want to talk about the Pramco property, that was brought up last meeting, just to help give you some better information on that. That started out as a brownfield project. We did that, I think that was,
Brian or Doug?
Doug, I think that was Doug Howard's project where we received a grant from the state, but it was matching dollars. The state part of that was $80,000, $40,000 match on the local. Duke kicked in 20, EDG kicked in 20. What complicated that or made it a little bit more interesting was the building burnt. The city's involvement with that, as I understand, was you were the fiscal agent. The money really was coming from EDG and the state on that. Out of the $67,000, there's at least $27,000 worth of expenses that come out of that money. And there were also, they're looking at a possibility of another $13,000 that we would have to pay on that. So when we talked about it before, it kind of sounded like it was just a gift to EDG. The reality is that was part of a business decision going forward. They got a little convoluted because of the fire. But it started out as a brownfield recovery. At that time, the thought was that we were going to go from brownfield to brownfield to try to make those areas more desirable for manufacturing to come into the county. We've gotten away from that. I'm not sure exactly why. If we had a director, they could explain it to you.
I just want to bring something up. I don't really want to be a Debbie Downer, but I mean, I see the definite advantage to having a director, but I also see it's tough that we can get somebody. But the facts are the facts about the three things that they said as to why we've only attracted the retailers that we have, possibly coming. And what can an EDG director how can he actually change any of that?
I think it,
I mean, he can't change the population, he can't change the, you know,
they can
the-
be active in working with consultants. We do have, I did spend about a couple hours last Friday working with a local manufacturer who has an issue, showing them some possibilities, trying to help them find a way to meet some immediate needs that they have, to make it attractive for them to stay here. I think that's really incumbent upon the Economic Development Director, is to build those relationships and be more proactive rather than reactive when situations come up. There are a number of meetings that I do not attend, whether it's IDEC, if I have my letters in the right order on that. I haven't worked directly with consultants, Energize, ECI, we are a member of them, but I have not attended those meetings. There just isn't enough time for me to do that. I am a volunteer. If we had someone that was in the director's position, they would be there, and I think as people get to know you and you're being active on the proactive end, trying to recruit, I'd be hopeful in thinking that we would see even more happening here in the community.
Are there any like regional directors that cover?
Well, you know, the thing that I found
an area?
interesting about Trevor's comment, one of the things we had talked about at the board level was hiring a part-time person, kind of growing into that, and he indicates he doesn't work with any part-time people. That kind of caught me by
But was his
surprise.
statement, there's none that he works with right now, or that he doesn't want to work with them? What was-
Yeah,
I
but there
didn't get
is
that
none
one
that
way or the other.
exists, or that he doesn't
I think
care
he
to work with.
indicated none exist.
I will read the quote, I wasn't there.
It's
And I was
kinda
gonna
hard to
refer to
interpret.
James, because this was his article, and James isn't here this evening. It says, "I don't work with any part-time economic development folks in other counties."
I think he's saying that there aren't any.
I'm not gonna read into anything other than what he says. He says
I
he
think-
doesn't, he said he doesn't work with any, he mentions earlier, they mentioned what counties he works with, and he's not working with any part-time folks.
I know him very
I just-
well, and he'll work with anybody that'll work with you,
Well,
I can tell you. He works with
I-
me, and I'm part-time, I think, whatever I am.
I just
And-
know that when Bill Kanye was here, and who was the man after Bill Kanye? I can't remember. So who do we have?
We had Doug Howard for a
Doug-
while,
Yeah, and then somebody else.
then we had
Brian.
Brian Covers.
Brian, yeah, Brian. I just remember coming in here and they were always on the phone, always networking, always,
I will tell you, there's not a day that goes by that I don't do something involving EDG.
I mean, he was going to the state, you know, trying to get through hoops that most people couldn't because,
He's governor of school corporation.
you know, that was his thing. I just think it's very important. I mean, if we're gonna get anything here
I agree.
of substance.
I agree.
Okay, council,
I-
all done? Okay, you wanted to make a motion?
I wanted to make a motion. First of all, I thank Dr. Hodges for his input. And along with what he said, as a council person, I feel my first obligation is to taxpayers of Connersville, because we're spending their monies. EDG, we need to do what we can. Having said that, I didn't feel we should spend $110,000 the first time that we voted on this, and I haven't changed any. I would like to make a motion that we spend what the county did, $60,000 on pending ordinance 6144. Thank you.
That's version 1. Is there a second?
I'll second because I don't think we should spend more money than what we may have, so.
Okay. We got a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? This is on version 1, right, John, where we put the figure in?
Well, if you're, both of them have
Fayette
blanks.
County.
You have to decide whether or not you want it to be amended to provide that the city of Connersville would pay an amount equal to the
That's what the
amount paid by
motion is.
Fayette
Right.
County, Indiana.
Yes,
You want to, your motion is to pay 60 equal to the county.
yes, like the county.
That's your second.
So that would
Yes.
be it, yeah, not to exceed.
That's not exactly what we voted down last time.
Not exactly.
It sounds exactly like it to me.
We
Well-
voted last time to change that to 60. This is fill in the blank with 60.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion from out there? None appearing, we'll have a roll call vote.
Just to complete the thought, if that is the level that is passed, would that be with the understanding that next year, the balance would be coming to EDG, or we start over from ground zero?
well, it'll be in the capital plan, 60 equal to what the county pays, so I think we all have to wait till we get to 2014.
So this is a yearly thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a yearly.
And
That's
then
right.
both of these provide that the city council, the common council decides how much shall be paid on a yearly basis.
because, you know, we will have that 50. We should have.
Well-
Let's say we should have. But if the county does something different, we could pay more or pay less.
Well, but if you say you're gonna match what the county pays, right now it's my understanding the county does not intend to pay anything in 2014.
I'm talking about 2013.
I understand, and just the request would be to consider some type of amendment to the motion that would say that there would be money coming in 2014. That's just a suggestion. I don't get to make a recommendation, I don't get to vote. Just share some thoughts with you.
Do we have any inkling what the county is going to do after?
Can we not, I'm asking a question. John,
We're away from the motion.
that's what I'm saying, can we not, I want to stay with my motion. This is for 2013.
Is there a
Then if you
desire
want to talk
to-
about 2014, then we can do that.
Is there a desire to have Mr. Creech's motion to include a specific amount?
No, you're not going to change my motion. I just made my motion, he seconded.
I guess that's pretty clear.
Well, it does say the amount to be paid by the city of Connersville shall be determined by the common council on a yearly basis. So next year you make this decision again,
Or 5 minutes from now.
yearly basis, for 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? None appearing. We're going to have a roll call vote.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's a simple one though, very simple. So when do we do this again? When in 2014?
I think we could do it about any time you want to in 2014.
Because
Yeah.
I'm just.
For
don't yell
14,
at me.
Gary?
Yeah, the only reason why I'm asking that question is that if by some chance you're looking for an economic development director, and hypothetically, we're gonna say we're gonna give him X amount of dollars, he has to have some sort of a notion that next year he's gonna be able to get X amount of dollars. So the earlier we do this in 2014 would be
Yeah.
better, don't you think?
Let me make it very clear to you. This is, as I told you before, this is not in our hands. The county gets the first count. And until we see what the first count is,
We don't know if they'll give us anything or not.
Right, correct.
That's-
I understand that.
Unless you
we
have the
will
60,
have
then we have
50,000
50, yeah.
roughly left over if Julie's
Yeah.
figures are proper.
I mean, they're talking about paying off the jail.
I don't question her figures, but
I've
I've seen the edit money.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry.
I see what you're
Thank
saying.
you.
No, we're good.
Yes, I know. Let's do-
Are you ready for the question?
Been ready all my life.
Roll call vote. Let's try it again.
Councilman Weber,
Yes.
Councilman Shomel.
Yes.
Councilman Nabi.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montgomery,
No.
Councilman Creech,
Yes,
Councilwoman Rish,
No.
I calculate we have 4 in favor
number 2.
and 2 against. The motion passes. But this is a ordinance. Would you like to suspend the rules and move forward on pending ordinance 3084?
So moved.
second.
Got a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move forward. On suspension of rules only, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That allows us to move to third and final reading. On pending ordinance 3084, this motion, read it back.
Motion to match the county at $60,000.
You got it, okay. We'll have a roll call vote.
We haven't had a
Oh,
motion.
I need a motion.
So
I'm sorry.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Gabe, second by Ron. Roll call vote.
Councilman Shomel.
Yes.
Councilman Nabi.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilman Creech,
Yes,
Councilwoman Rish,
No.
Councilman Weber,
Yes.
Okay, now we have a 5-1 vote in favor. The motion carries.
I thought that was to go to third and final reading.
that was
It
third
is
and final
third.
Oh,
reading.
it was, okay.
Okay. We got that finally decided. Now we have to do the appropriation, right?
yes.
Pending ordinance 30.
Your Honor? Your Honor?
3035. This is the ordinance that will move, yeah, I'm sorry.
I want to ask you a question. Gary brought a great point up. We just took action on 2013. Would it not be advantageous for everyone if we could kind of look in the crystal ball and maybe in December talk about 2014? January at the latest?
Well, we won't know any more about the county.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Will we in January?
In January, we won't know anything until they do their capital
We'll,
plan and,
we'll know we have 50,000,
yeah.
so we could give that at that point.
Okay.
You know, I don't understand what's so critical, because we got it with 60,000 we're putting in, and they're putting 60, that's 120. They got 400,000 or 500,000 in there. I don't know why that would be, what's the big deal about hiring somebody?
Yeah, I don't
You wanna
get
get
it.
to $1 million before you hire somebody?
I think it,
I think that was a flippant comment, and I would respond to that. I would just say, as I said, you need to be prudent in your budgeting. I think we need to be prudent in our budgeting. The last thing I want to do, I mean, I owned a house for 6 years and couldn't sell it when I came here. I know what kind of commitment it takes sometimes to come to a community. I'm not going to ask somebody to come to a community when I have questions as to whether or not the funding stream is going to be there. I understand where we're at funding-wise, and I respect that. And we've got to work together, and I think we've tried to work together as best we can. If the money's there, I would hope that you would give us due consideration to do that. I will tell you that today, I read some exchanges of emails. I told you before we were doing a more targeted search for the Economic Development Director, and those requests are going out. We're going to move as quickly as we can on that. Can't guarantee how soon that's going to be, but we're working on it. And as I shared, for those that weren't here last time, we did have a search. We did bring in 2 finalists, and we decided that neither one of them would help move us forward in the direction that we needed to go. So we declared it a failed search, and so we're going back. So it's not that we're not doing anything.
Right.
We're trying to do the best that we can. You understand the challenges that we have, but we're doing the best we can to try to
Okay,
move forward.
the comment was brought up, you have 500,000. What do you do with that? What is that money earmarked for? Or is it?
Well,
Or is
some
it
of the
just
money,
sitting there?
some of the money is earmarked for loans, for incentives. I talked to you last time about someone who's trying to start a business in a vacant building. He's asking for some help with some liens and some other kinds of things. I'm not sure where he's going to be with that, but we have talked about the possibility of providing funding to help him through that. This last year, I shared with you about $63,000 that we had shared helping the city with some of the things. As was indicated earlier this evening, we contributed $10,000 to the infrastructure of the property you gave the abatement to this evening. We are still working on closing costs. Started out about 35,000, went to 45, and we shared last week that number may go higher.
Don't know, we have it, don't we, Mayor?
I have the closing costs with the exception of the last resolution I had to do.
So those are things, when people come to us and talk, we talked to a couple other businesses, if they need some help getting something going forward, having some cash reserve to be able to do that.
Is that money at all being used for these freestanding buildings that you're contemplating building, or?
Well, that would have to do that, that'd have to be involved somewhere
Okay.
in that, but I'm not sure.
So-
There again, we're sending a group out, kind of
Right.
exploratory to look at.
So you're stretching that amount of money out very thin.
what does a director cost per year, Dr. Hodges?
I don't recall, we had a budget set for that, and I don't know if anybody behind me can recall what that was. I know we tried to structure a contract that had some incentives based in it, not incentives based on jobs, because that's not necessarily the appropriate indicator for the economic development director. But we had a committee that came up with what we thought was a fair way to go through that, and I apologize, I don't have that
Okay.
number in mind. But there again, it depends on the quality of individual
Sure.
that you attract.
Experience they have and so
Absolutely.
on. Yes.
Right,
Thank you.
my pleasure, thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Okay, pending orders 35. You passed it now that it has to be 60. You can go lower, but you can't go higher, because you amended the capital plan. So I presume you want to put 60 on pending ordinance 35. Would you assume that, John?
Yeah,
Yes.
the amount appropriated.
And we would appropriate that amount of money.
It's been passed on first reading, at 100,000, so whoever, will have to make a motion to amend it to 60,000 for third and final reading.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to amend pending ordinance 3035 to $60,000.
A second.
Before we vote on third reading, then we'll vote on the amendment. We have an amendment on the floor to change this to $60,000. All understand what we're doing? I think it's relatively simple. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed?
Aye.
Record show one person opposed. Now, with the 60,000 inserted, which we just amended, pending ordinance 3035 on third and final reading, and remember now it's reading 60,000. That's what we're appropriating here tonight. I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to appropriate $60,000 to the EDG.
And pass pending ordinance 3035 as amended.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote.
Councilman Nabi,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilman Creech,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rish,
Yes.
Councilman Weber,
Yes.
Councilman Shomel.
Yes.
I believe it's 7
Six.
straight. 6-1.
We don't have to.
Oh, we- 6 up. We have 6 positive votes. Pending ordinance 3035 passes on third and final reading and becomes pending, ordinance 6095 with $60,000. It only took 2 or 3 months to get that done. Okay, we have old business. Does there anybody have any old business? Old business?
Yeah,
Huh?
John, we heard anything from the abstract company yet?
Mayor, did you get a chance to talk to him?
Yes, I did, and I think it's on the back burner. I think you're gonna have to
Pardon me?
up your money a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. The only amount that we offered him was $500. I don't think we're gonna get much done for that.
I had a lady stop me in Walmart last night and absolutely just laid on me that it was our responsibility to put the sidewalk up to Walmart and get it done. I had tried to tell her it was a state highway. She said it may be a state highway, but it's in the city of Connersville, get the sidewalk up. And while I left, there were people walking up along the road. So I think it's an important issue. I don't know what happened to the committee that was working on it.
It is
Still
important.
working on it, waiting on the.
In the Connersville Commons, we allowed for an easement to put a sidewalk.
But as far as, Gabe's talking about
The rail bed,
the rail bed and determining who actually owns it and to what extent it's owned.
because we can't do anything until we determine that.
You know how
We have to have
Ron's
a
job to
title.
spend more money?
Title search.
$500 is what you have on it.
It's not gonna get it done. No, I think you're gonna have to decide whether or not you wanna spend what they require, whatever it takes. to
What
get
is
the
what
job
they
done.
require?
Pardon me?
How much are they requiring?
They haven't given us the figure because they have to go do the work and it may take longer than they anticipate. They just have to work through it because that's a pretty complex issue. Ooh. Hey, yeah, that's a difficult one. Determining, all the various owners of lots, you know, up and down, the railroad right away and also whether or not it was owned outright by the railroad or they only had easements. If it was owned outright, that simplifies it some. If they only had easements, that makes it more complex. And also, there was some talk, and I think this probably, to a certain extent, valid, that a certain part of it was conveyed by quitclaim deed to the state of Indiana.
Didn't they do some preparation
Well, when they did the,
for their study, when they
Highway.
were going to extend the road, make the?
yeah, when they put Park Road, widened Park Road, there was some work on conveying those assets to the state of Indiana, and that's why, another thing we needed the title search on.
I was on that council, and I just asked Julia, I don't remember us acquiring any land
The
through
city
state or
didn't.
city. All we did was made it wider behind Gas America.
Yeah, no, the state of Indiana acquired it.
I don't think they ever went that far.
Well.
I thought we
there-
acquired it from that quitclaim deed, from the state.
I think it was the state of Indiana, but again, that's what needs to be researched.
And the title company is the proper company, or do you want to hire an engineering
No,
company?
the title company would be the company to do it.
You want to offer him $5,000 to check that out, or?
Well, I would suggest an amount that they would require, depending on what they determine it needs to be done. And I've worked with them for 45 years, and they've always been extremely fair. I've never seen them be outrageous in their billing. I think they would be fair with us as to whatever it took.
You want me to get a price and see what they would take to do that?
I think that's not a
We
good
will
idea.
do good.
I think that's a good idea.
I'll get a price and bring it back to you next 2 weeks.
You know, but even though if that goes through, that still doesn't actually replace an actual sidewalk.
Well, that's a start
On State
because
Road
now
1.
we got some land that we can work something up that way. From my understanding is we can't put a sidewalk up there. Is that right? Because of the setbacks?
No, we can now because we allowed for, I think it was a 35-foot easement.
Easement along the utility strip,
We
once
went
it's in.
back to Connersville Commons, and from Connersville Commons south, the zoning board is requiring a 35-foot easement. We didn't have an easement before.
Are we requiring Connersville Commons to chip in for sidewalks?
We discussed it with them.
Yeah, but
Because
the owner of the
that would
property.
take up quite a bit.
The fact they couldn't put the water line down in the front, and the fact we gotta give them abatement to get it going, I don't know whether they can afford to put a sidewalk
But we
down.
do have an easement, which is a big part of the cost.
Right,
We can put the sidewalk on the utility easement,
yeah, we own the easement.
yeah. And that would be a lot cheaper than having to acquire the easements, I think.
Well, the News Examiner printed a story about an individual thinking we should take the west side of State Road 1.
Yeah. That's an impossibility because of the steepness of the grade, and then you have to cross the highway up there.
Well, yeah, they allowed for that for a pedestrian cross and with the light and everything, so.
I think that means we're dangerous in walking up the highway.
Probably, could be, yeah. They
You'd
get
have to put an walkover, but the railroad grade goes right down to the state highway,
Yes.
so there's no way we could go up there. You have to have a mountain goat to walk on that sidewalk. All right, well, I'll get a price from Jane to see what she would take to research that ground, is that okay? Is
Sounds
that what
good.
the council wants?
Yeah. Be a good idea.
You shaking your head, yes?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get that taken care of. Any other old business?
The house is second a nickel. Were we going to bring that up tonight about the dumpsters?
We have determined that we're going to take money from Tom's budget and do it. Tom's got
Okay,
enough
good.
money for dumpsters, we're
I
at the end of the year.
talked to Julie this afternoon, and as long as we don't get too wild, we'll be okay.
Good.
Okay.
So you're gonna be taking that down shortly?
May start tomorrow.
He said,
Okay.
I mean, what's tomorrow? We waited how many years?
Yeah, but if you do it while it's raining, you won't have any dust.
I'm just teasing you.
All right, we'll see that he gets it down.
Okay.
Any other old business? Miscellaneous business, start with you, Tom.
I would like to offer my condolences to Gabe Nobby. Purdue and Ohio State played. It wasn't pretty. Sorry, Gabe. That's all I got.
Nothing.
Connie? Debbie. Get my women on each side. Gabe? Julie?
I'm not quick.
Clerk treasurer?
She's not supposed to have,
Isn't she?
no,
Fran?
no, I have nothing.
Any wisdom, Dr. Weber?
Wisdom?
Oh, gee.
No, I don't have any wisdom, but I would like to say hello to Brooke Lee, who's watching this, because I told her it was a good governmental body, and she should watch it, and she just texted me, said she was.
You torture people like that.
I don't know, it is torture, I don't know what I should do, but she is. Thank you.
We should all wear it.
Connie?
Nothing.
Okay. What are you raising your hand?
I got one issue. It may be raised or not. I didn't know if the chief was gonna raise the fact that we have some folks here that wanna
Yeah,
close
we
the alley.
got two other items of business that's gonna come here.
All right,
on
I wanna make sure
miscellaneous.
that.
I just wanted to get the council on this lane. I think if it's all right, well, we'll go ahead and take you. You've sat very patiently. Can one of you come up to the podium? Mrs. Chapman, you're always the spokesman for him. You wanna come? It don't hurt. I wonder if you come up to the podium.
No, you go ahead.
Mr. Chapman owns property up on top of the hill off of Summit Avenue on Meyer Avenue. And I sent the chief of police up there to look at it. The alley that runs behind Meyer is pretty much been occupied by garages, sheds, and the people that own in front of it have been mowing it. He owns the alley east and west and the alley north and south. He owns on both sides, and he came down to ask about closing it. So we looked at it, and what we've determined, John has to go through a state, tell him what you have to do to get this done, John.
Well,
We gotta have a survey.
right, there's a state statute that provides the procedure that has to be followed by adjacent property owners to an alley to get it closed. And I don't have the statute with me, I had it at the Board of Works today, but one of the requirements is you have to file a petition with the Common Council to close the alley, and the other requirement is you have to give notices to anyone that may be affected by the closing, and you must pay for that notice that goes into the newspaper. And one of the other possibilities is you may need to have the alleys that you want to get closed surveyed, so it can be determined exactly where the boundary lines are for the various properties, the rear lot lines, side lot lines, in conjunction with the alley. So it can get into be a relatively large project. And I would recommend that if you're going to be going through such a project, the last one we had done, the folks were represented by an attorney, and prepared the petition, did all the notices, and there's a lot of neighbors up there that presumably could be affected by the closing of an alley. If one end is blocked off, for example, that could conceivably cause problems to some people. They're entitled to have a public hearing and to remonstrate against the alley closing.
I do think in this case, John, everybody up there would be in favor of it, because it hasn't been there for 40 years.
It's certainly
And they're-
possible,
and they're all
but we have
mowing
to
it.
follow the statute.
If we had a city engineer, I would certainly send them up there. The only other choice I would have would be to hire an engineering company to go up there and draw the thing up and look at it. How do you feel about it, Mr. Chapman? What would you rather do? It really makes sense to close the entire alley, because you can't go through there anyway. You couldn't drive through there in a bicycle.
Can't drive through it. I'm just gonna close up to Brian Chapman, behind my house there where he lives.
So John, you see, it wouldn't affect anybody because you can't enter the alley anyway.
Well, the statute seems to require certain notices to be given anyhow, and they must be allowed to come in and talk. It is a platted alley. It's in a plat that, even though it's never been improved, but it's a platted alley in a platted subdivision. And so it certainly does exist. It's just difficult to look at it and call it an alley because it's never had any gravel or anything else on it. But it is in fact a platted alley.
Okay, with that, what does the council want me to do? You
We've
want me to
used it
ignore
since
Mr.?
75.
Huh?
We've used it, I know, since 75.
Do you want me to ignore Mr. Chapman, or do you want me to pursue it?
Eric,
Yes.
I got a question.
Yes.
It's been $100.
If Mr. Chapman isn't gonna build on this property or anything like that, it looks just like, it's just yards, is all it is. So what's the gain if he's not gonna plan on building on it other than his property? I mean, what's the gain to just leave it as it is? You know what I mean?
It doesn't hurt to leave it as it is, as long as you have no
he's still got
boundary line
access.
fights.
I mean, he's been mowing it, and other neighbors have been mowing it as part of their
Brian can take
yards.
care of it.
And they're the ones that's maintaining it, and what's the difference if
Well,
they continue on doing that, or?
If the alley is closed, then it becomes one half goes to each property owner on each side. They become the owner of that property. That was at one time an alley which has been closed. That's the only difference.
So technically, other than his properties aren't gonna butt up, because he's got this imaginary alley going down the grass. So there's nothing really to gain long as he's not building in the alley, correct?
It could change taxes, couldn't it?
Oh, there's very, very small amounts, I think.
I think we should increase the taxes. They're already building in the alley. There's all
Yeah, well,
kinds of
there's a
buildings.
shed in one of them.
Yeah, they're, yeah.
What does the council want me to do with Mr. Chapman?
I don't think the city should spend major dollars to do all this surveying and stuff if it isn't gonna make any difference.
Well, the statute doesn't require the city to do it. It requires the owners of the adjacent lots to do it.
I think what the mayor was asking was if we wanted to,
Do you want to pursue it in some manner?
If you don't close it, then we run into the situation that we are in with the trail up north here. Up there.
So what needs to be done is the owner needs to file a petition with this body to have it closed. And then the owner of the adjacent lots has to give notice to all other potentially affected property owners that use the alley in that, or abut the alley, that they must be able to come in and remonstrate and object to the closing of the alley. And the owner has to pay for the public notice, which can be expensive. And also notices have to be sent out by certified mail to each affected property owner. So it gets to be quite a complicated process.
Chief of Police, if we close the alley right here tonight, would it affect anybody?
No,
No,
nobody knew it was an alley.
no.
Why do we even have to close? Does anybody know it's open?
Are you
It's not open.
satisfied with, are you satisfied with leaving it like it is, or do you want to pursue this? Mrs. Chapman, you did,
Well, I don't think I should have to pay for 10 other people. There's 10 people has access to this alley, so you say, but they're already using it. But the very end that we're talking about, they don't have to go there. They've got 5 ways to go into that alley if you want them to. We look, there's no utilities through there. So why is it, are you punishing us? We can't do it, but we can mow it for you for 20 years, right?
I'm just telling you what the state law says requires for an alley to be closed.
Well, why can't you close a section of it? That's all we want is a
This-
section of it.
Well, no,
because
you
there's-
must have it closed. You're the adjacent owner of the lot.
Well, that's
you
what
must
we're up there
petition.
for, petitioning to get
Well,
our
no, you
section
have to
closed.
you have to file a written petition. And you have to have even possibly a survey of the alley you want closed.
Well, I plan on having my section surveyed anyway, because I go all the way down that alley on the one side anyway. So I'm getting 8.5 feet all the way, but I don't care about that back here. I'm just wanting it between my house and the lot right there.
Yeah, I understand. I'd be glad to meet with you and explain the statute to you. That might be a
'Cause we
better way
got-
to do it.
We've only got, what do we got? Not very many, our lot's not very big up front there.
I understand.
I don't think you really know what the map shows.
I've seen the map. Mayor, I suggest I can meet with these folks and show them the statute and explain it to them.
Can we do that, Mayor? John,
Yeah.
talk to folks?
and you know, if you
See
could
if you
get
can get
those
some-
8 or 9 other people to go with you, it would be worthwhile, just close it, and all of you enjoy
I know
it.
that one's in a nursing home, I think. I don't know.
I've used it on
If
here.
it's closed, that way 20 years from now, there isn't a problem.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's gonna happen 20 years from
Well, you get into conveyances of property as time goes by, and then people don't know what they own if the alley hasn't been closed appropriately and officially, and it's not even been surveyed. It gets into all kinds of title
Okay,
problems.
will you meet with Mr. Baker, he's the city attorney, and see what can be done there? Will you?
16.5 feet of it.
I'll call you and make an appointment with you.
Mrs. Chapman, will I be all right with you he's gonna make an appointment
Yeah,
with
you
you
got a
to look
now.
at
We're
it.
making a mess for other people.
Okay.
That's fine.
I see what
It
you're
don't
saying.
matter either way, we used to, like I said, 20 years, but we just like to basically, because we bought the property on the other side.
5, I know we have
Just have one
675.
It now divides your properties, because you own, it divides your properties now, because you
Yeah.
own both sides, and you
Yeah.
like to put them together.
We just like to put them together, you know?
Yeah, I understand what you're doing, I've been up there and looked at it. Okay.
Yeah, so anybody drives by there wouldn't even, they thought it was my property anyway, so.
We have a silly thing, it's no different, nobody was.
Well, I heard of one of our, I can tell you, I can tell you that story.
All right.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Chapman, but he will meet with you, and he'll call you. You wanna leave your phone number with him?
I've got it.
You got it all? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's already made up his mind.
No, I haven't. I'm gonna meet with you and explain the law to you. It's not my decision, man. It's this body must decide whether or not to close the alley.
You better send him sometime.
Hopefully there's an easier solution to this problem for you.
Thank you.
Fire chief,
We thank you folks, so.
thank you for coming tonight and being so patient.
If you want money, it's no.
Well, you just well sit down.
You know that's why he's up here.
Yeah, it is about money, it's about transferring money into my budget. We do have the money in the budget. Me and Dale was talking, and we're both in need of some furniture. And if we get a cheaper deal, a better deal if we go in together. And I need to transfer roughly 2,300 and some, 2367.20, I believe, out of one part of my budget to another into my furniture.
What he's basically saying, they wanna buy 12 chairs, I would say Lazy Boy, they don't wanna buy, they're gonna buy Lane recliners. They got a bid of $296 a piece.
Yeah,
And, they wanna buy 12, 4 for the first aid unit, and,
8 for the fire.
8 for the, not only that fire station, all the fire stations. They tell me they're all wore out. I told they're sitting in too hard. But anyway,
You want to
I just-
transfer funds in
Yeah.
your budget.
I'll make the motion
Well-
to transfer.
with him,
We'll have to bring it back in ordinance
we have
form.
to
can't do it tonight.
They wanna be able to get some orders.
I think Gary made a motion, didn't it?
I'll second.
I second.
Yes, sir, what was it?
Let's do it.
You said,
Second.
okay, you said we will transfer the money when we have to advertise.
Yeah,
We don't have to,
We'll advertise.
we have to do an
We'll
ordinance.
do an ordinance next meeting.
Okay.
So it's just doing the transfer. Thank you.
Trade down, all in favor?
Aye. You
There
already
you go.
had the money.
Motion carried. Boy, that's easy. Come on, do another 2300. Now, I got a couple other things under miscellaneous. We have new Christmas decorations, and I think we started to put them up today. UEA gave the city some money. I took what money I had left in the promotion fund, and we had a couple of other funds, and we were able to order 145 sets of LED lights to put on the trees. Last year and the years before, the LED lights went halfway up and quit. We're gonna actually go to the top of the tree. So we don't ask you for any more money, but we have got that done, and we got it done for the tune of about $7,000, didn't we? The decorations downtown where the bottle brush truck looked like, they had faded out, and they were white bottle brushes, they looked terrible. So, we did get that done. Mike and Phil have been talking to me over at the garage. In years past, in the wintertime, we would take the lawnmowers over to the old city garage. Well, the roof finally fell in on that, and someone broke the lock off, so at the same time, we pretty much had the Vistion building at our disposal. So we've been taking all of our summer stuff, our blacktop and all this stuff, we take it up to the Vistion plant. Well, we sold the Vistion plant, as you know. And so they were wanting to build a maintenance storage garage over someplace, at the park, possibly north of the garage, where some of the Board of Works didn't like that idea too good. They rather build something down maybe on Tom's property, down there on the far corner, and store all the lawnmowers in the, because you got a fence around it.
Right.
Store all the lawnmowers in the wintertime, and the blacktop machine and the leaf picker uppers and all that stuff, store it down there. And then, Phil can't hardly work in his garage anymore because there's so many snowplows, and we want to keep our equipment in. And all I'm asking you tonight is to think about this. It doesn't make sense to buy this nice equipment. We bought a nice lawnmower, $11,600 Kubota, and it just takes up so much room because we can't use a lawnmower in the wintertime. But we don't want to let them sit where they get wet. And up at the park, the Board of Works particularly don't want to build another building in the park. We've thought about other buildings we might rent or use. But then when they came up with that space down on your property, Tom, back in that back corner.
Mr. Mayor, how much money are you talking about? As far as the transfer station facility, we have, I think it's 5 or 6 acres fenced, so that's not an issue, and it's lit. But how much money are we talking about?
We've been talking to some people. If we could get the package bought, I think our people could put it up. 60 by, what did I say, 60 by 90, just with a sliding door, locked.
Concrete floor?
We would put the concrete floor in ourselves. But we have to have money, kind of do it like we did the 4-H building. If you're not interested, you're not interested. I just know we got all this equipment right now, it's all sitting out.
Well, my concern is money. I understand about the equipment and so forth, and we have plenty of room for.
We'd have to take it on a riverboat.
But, I'd like to know how much money we're talking about.
Well, if you guys kind of think you'd like to look at that, we'll get 2 or 3 prices on a package that we can put up ourselves, or one put up and then we can finish. I know we can electrify it, put the floor in it, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I would like to see some prices brought to us. I think that's what you want, Tom.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Are you interested at all? I'm not
Well,
gonna
I think
spend
so.
money.
Yeah, we
Makes
have to
sense.
take care of our equipment. Dave, you have any thought on the size? I mean,
It's just like anything you build, it's never too big.
yeah,
You know, if you get a 200 by 200, we can fill
Well,
it.
Phil told me this morning he wanted it like 60 by 100 or 60 by 90, and he wants 12-foot ceiling in it so we can put all that big stuff inside there and just store it when we're not using it. We got some pretty nice stuff.
like I said, it's a secured facility, that 12-foot chain link fence wire, that's not an issue. My concern is, as Fran said, is
Yeah,
how much money
I
we're
think the
talking
mayor should
about.
bring a couple of weeks and bring estimates to us.
Is that what you want?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have tonight. Public have anything under public forum?
You get trash on Monday.
We're gonna have trash on Monday, it's Veterans Day, and that brings me to that. The Veterans Service is gonna be at the Miller Building. Watch the paper and listen to the radio for the times. It's gonna be a nice Veterans Service, totally different than it's been in the past. And, I think they're gonna serve lunch to veterans. So if you're a veteran, you might wanna look at that, but everybody's invited, and, you know, it is a big thing to, remember the armistice.
Absolutely.
11th month and the 11th day and the 11th hour. In what year, Fran?
18.
1918. We've kind of forgotten that because they changed it to Veterans Day.
Leonard, you were just a boy then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was just
Leonard, I think Leonard
fooling
was.
around.
But seriously, we made a decision today to let them use the, and how that came about was there were some people didn't like the smoke at the clubs, and some people didn't like the drinking. So they said, could we have it up there where it's kind of a neutral place, no drinking, no smoking? Sure, I said, that'd be a good idea. Then I worry, are there gonna be some that don't wanna go because they can't drink and can't smoke? So that's gonna work both ways. But anyway, we're gonna try and push it. Are you a veteran, Tom?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?